Tate Meyer, 16. Madison Baldwin, age 17. Hannah St. Juliana, age 14. And Justin Schilling, age 17. They're all dead. They were murdered last Tuesday by their classmate. Maybe you knew this, or maybe not. Perhaps this bit of horror was buried under news of a new coronavirus variant, a potential government shutdown, the threat of the court overturning Roe versus Wade, or perhaps the Russian forces gathering for an offensive in Ukraine. Or perhaps you did hear the news and you were shocked and dismayed and saddened when you heard that these children were killed, but only for a moment, because exhaustion and numbness, desensitization, and that nagging sense of powerlessness, which is understandable. According to a website called security.org, between April 20th, 1999, and May 7th, 2021, where their reporting ended, where their research ended, there have been 231 shootings in schools that resulted in injury or death. 11 at elementary schools, 24 at middle schools, 122 high schools, and 74 at colleges. There have been 485 injuries and 304 fatalities. By the way, that start date on their research, April 20th, 1999, that was Columbine. Which means the survivors of that atrocity are now in their late 30s. Some of them probably have kids that will be in high school soon. Anyway, despite our numbness, despite what has become the norm, I wanted you to know today that Tate and Madison and Hannah and Justin are dead, and I wanted you to know that I just called this normal when it is anything but normal. What occurred in Michigan this week was another direct assault on our humanity. It is abnormal. Our desensitization, our exhaustion for how can any of us hold that kind of pain for this long, our resignation, our self-defensive indifference, these are the symptoms of our humanity under assault. I asked Rachel today to sing "Don't Worry, Be Happy" weird. It was a weird request because I wanted her to play it slowly and in a minor key. Not only that, I knew she could. And I made this strange request in the way that I asked her to do this song with a purpose, because I wanted us to hear it differently. Because honestly, the song has always annoyed me. Not its catchiness, that's okay, and not its little hooks that get stuck in my head for hours on end. No, that's not what actually annoys me about it. My annoyance with the song is its lyrical directive, don't worry, be happy. As if we can make that demand of one another. As if we should ignore all our sufferings of the past, the ones we're struggling with right now, and those we dread may come. Don't worry, be happy is this manifestation of a kind of toxic positivity that gets foisted by those who find our despair to be uncomfortable for them. And well, fair enough. That's fine. Because perhaps those foisting their demands for our happiness have enough of their own pain to deal with, such that they can't take ours on as well. I get it. I understand that. But it does not excuse the impact of the enforcers of joy have on us, on those of us just trying to make it to the next step, the next thing on our to-do list. 4 teenagers are dead in Michigan, and our humanity is under assault, and I don't find any love, compassion, or possibility of transformation in "Don't worry, be happy." But friends, that's not to say that there isn't joy in this life. That we are somehow, even in our sorrow, unable to open ourselves to joy during these holy days and holy nights of early winter. It's more that joy is something that cannot be forced upon us, demanded of us, or expected of us. Despite all that these days of shopping and celebrating and gift exchanging and feasting would expect of us, joy is more of a ephemeral experience, and one that is more difficult to connect to than we are often led to believe. Brene Brown writes this about joy. She says, "I'd argue that joy is probably the most difficult emotion to really feel. In a culture of deep scarcity, of never feeling safe, certain, and sure enough, joy can feel like a setup. We're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Scarcity and fear drive foreboding joy. We are afraid that the feeling of joy won't last, or that we won't be enough, or that the transition to disappointment or whatever is in store for us next will be too difficult. We've learned that giving in to joy is at best setting ourselves up for disappointment, and at worst inviting disaster. And we struggle with that worthiness issue. Do we even deserve our joy, given our inadequacies and imperfections?" She says, "What about the starving children in the war-ravaged world? Who are we? Who are we to be joyful?" Joy notwithstanding. Notwithstanding all of this that I have laid out before you, there is a log crackling in my fireplace, and the dog is fallen asleep by the hearth. I am well, and despite everything I read in the news, I am safe. And there are people that love me. And there's this soup that I made from the Thanksgiving leftovers, brothy and hot, simmering on the stove right now. And somewhere around my home is a piece of dark chocolate brownie that has been calling me for the last day. I am breathing in and out, and my daughter is laughing in the next room, and I don't know why. And as I write, it is dark outside, early darkness these days. And that reminds me of a kind of peace I feel in the quiet of the cold. And I find it strange that the dark nights can both be a source of solace and fear, peace and terror. twinkling exuberance and whispered songs of youth, wonder and urgency. The psalmist says that for his anger is but for a moment, his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may linger for the night, but joy comes with the morning. And maybe the psalmist is right about that morning thing. But maybe too, joy comes whenever it comes. Unforced, unexpected, undeterred by the violences that rest in our hearts and souls, unconcerned about our worries, our fears, our anxieties. Joy comes whenever it comes, slides up next to us and whispers this too, my friend. Yes, I know you are suffering. Yes, I know you're in pain. Yes, I know this night feels endless, but look, there's Jupiter. And there's this soup I made. And there's laughter in the next room. And there are people that love you. We feel it when we feel it. And when we feel it, joy teaches us that we live a whole life. When we feel joy, it is, if only for that moment, we know ourselves to be worthy, and we touch the divine in ourselves. Joy does not ask us to forget that Tate and Madison and Hannah and Justin's lives have been taken from them, taken from us. But joy does ask us to remember why we are outraged, why we are despairing, why we are overwhelmed by these pandemics and atrocities. Joy reminds us of our humanity, that we are, by whatever miracle, here, breathing in and out, humans, merely being. And the only demand that joy makes of us is that, the assaults notwithstanding, we remain fully, holy, and wholly human. I was reading a letter from the poet Predrag Otwama. And he writes for the On Being website. And in that letter, he tells the story of this old rabbi who would encourage his congregants to carry a piece of paper in their pocket. Little, just piece of paper, right? And on that piece of paper were the words, "The world is created for me." And then he instructed them that in their other pocket, they carry a piece that reads, "I am but dust and ashes." And it is this practice of awareness of the fullness of this life, that it isn't all about joy, but neither is it all about sorrow, that I invite us into this holiday season, a time of year not to forget our troubles, but to live in them. A time of year, too, not to fear the encounter with joy, Jupiter in the telescope, twinkling lights in the darkness, a hot cup of tea, but to feel it for all its ephemeral beauty. Otwama suggests maybe other bits of paper we should carry with us. I am capable of kindness. I am capable of great cruelty. There is strength in community. I must learn to be alone. And as I read these, others came to my mind. There is no God. I am the manifestation of God. I am afraid. I am compassionate. I am indifferent. I am love. This world is overwhelming in its sorrow to joy. So friends, you have an assignment. I want you to do this month. To give yourself the gift of these holy days and holy nights. Truly, I want you to carry the little bits of paper in your pockets. From today through the end of the year, beyond that, if you're willing. On one, I invite you to write some version of your fear, your sorrow, your pain. I am afraid. I am capable of great cruelty. I am but ashes and dust. And in the other, I want you to write your possibility, your joy. I am the manifestation of God. I am love. The world was created for me. Whatever those words are for you. I want you to carry these bits of paper with you this month, these simple and strange truths with you as you move through your days and nights. Take this as a spiritual practice during these holy days, carrying the fullness of your life, carrying the fullness of your life until its strange truth becomes embedded within you and you are transformed, opened to joy, and at long last, resting in the fullness of your humanity. That is your assignment. Because I love you. And amen. And may we live in blessing.